Well, well, well. Good morning. It's me, Bob Harris, Senior Editor, FootballDiehards.com. It's championship weekend, and probably nothing but champions here. I'll give everyone a chance to show up and join me in the chat. Feel free to chime in with any questions or comments you might have as we head into what hopefully was going to be a great weekend, right? 2 Sunday games. What do we start out with? I guess the order of play. I should have known this. San Francisco, Philadelphia. I did know it. San Francisco, Philadelphia, 3 p.m. kickoff Eastern time. Cincinnati, Kansas City at Burrowhead Stadium. Chris Jones got an issue with everybody. In Kansas City at 6:30 Eastern time. Ready for some exciting games. We'll all be setting some DFS lineups, I'm sure, this week. I hope you're doing well in your tournaments. Hope you're getting ready for a great season ahead, as we are. Got a lot going on in Football Diehards, as always. Plenty of content up. The latest injury report, I'll run through that for both games. Nothing too concerning, although Travis Kelce did turn up. We'll jump into that. Hey, Dame, I'm not the real champ. You're the real champ. You're always here. Appreciate you coming. Saw some of you on Thursday in the Front Yard Fantasy YouTube channel, the FanDuel. Those guys, I love those guys. Had a great time with Simon, Jay, and Joey. First time on with Joey. That was great. And I dominated, of course, perception poll. I've been a mixed bag on those shows. Have a good time doing them. The games are great. Those guys are very creative. And hello, Wendy. Glad you could make it. Appreciate you coming in. Appreciate everyone showing up. Again, we'll keep doing this throughout the off season. We'll figure out some things to chit chat about. I'll have more guests on over the course of the off season as well. People with expertise in areas that I don't have, like rookies. I mean, just starting to get into the rookies. We'll have John Laub on here at times. Matt Waldman, I'm sure, will join us, among others, and we'll have some in-depth discussions. We're going to do our first Monday mock draft Monday on the radio show. In case you don't know, I am on the Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. I'll be on today, 3 p.m. to 5. Mike Dempsey will be getting you ready for some final prep for the games tomorrow. We'll have Jeff Bell from Football Guys on. We'll talk a little DFS, talk about some of the matchups, some of the issues. I had to teach those guys to play their own game. Look, those guys teach me something every time. I love hanging out with those guys in person and on the interwebs. We will have some really help. We had a great conversation last night with Mike Fiala from Dynasty League Football and Trophy Smack. Guy is a whiz-bang Dynasty players. You know, if you listen to the radio program, Mike Dempsey, also big into the Dynasty. Also, I play a lot of Dynasty as well, so we have a good time breaking that up. And there is some interesting, approaches we'll talk about over the course of the offseason. I'm glad you're getting into the Dynasty, Wendy. It's a great time. And some of the leagues are, we do, Dempsey is always so gung-ho. We have the Football Diehards Dynasty League, also known as the Mike Dempsey Invitational. 32 teams, 2 16-team leagues, basically, 2 copies of every player, 50-man rosters, full IDP. Good luck on the waiver wire. It's a ton of fun, but had a real great conversation with Mike last night, and there's going to be some interesting things we have to get into. This, the quarterback intrigue is going to be something that we're going to be discussing. The latest intrigue. Before we get into the games, let's talk about one of the newsy items of this week. Is Tua Tagovailoa still in the concussion protocol? And I'm like, I don't want to overplay this, and overstate it, but this is probably as long as I can remember somebody being in the concussion protocol that wasn't done playing, right? I mean, we've seen players who just, couldn't return. I mean, everyone says Tua is going to return. I'm not going to call them liars. It's just taking some time. They could have just, I don't know. I guess we appreciate the transparency, right? Like, oh, he's still in the concussion protocol. Wow. Couldn't you say, hey, we're just taking it really cautious and don't feel the need for him to play flag football at this point in time? Is that what the Pro Bowl is? Flag football now? I mean, it wasn't football before. I'm guessing that the flag version of the Pro Bowl will be much closer to football than what we saw in recent years. That wasn't football. That was an embarrassment. I mean, I'm not blaming players for not putting in a lot of effort. But honestly, then why keep playing it? This is a good. We'll see how this plays out. Also eager for the Dynasty conversations. Currently debating an offer for Superflex, Wendy. 2 quarterback leagues, essentially. You knew that probably once you figured it out. Currently debating offer for getting the 103 for Watson in Superflex. I'd probably keep Watson, right? Like, and so I get, obviously the off-field issues are still, in the middle of somebody, are still, front and center for some people. I mean, I think, from playing football perspective, we're past that. I just, so looking at that, angle of it, it seems like the end of the season, it was starting to trend a little better. So I'm probably going to be looking to acquire, but I think you're going to have to pay for those. I think that's the thing about Watson. And maybe if you're selling and if you're set at the position, maybe you're selling on that hook. It's pretty good, pretty good return. And there's some good quarterbacks in this class. Superflex is the way to go, Wendy. You should be playing Superflex. I love Superflex. Just so much fun. I don't know why. It's just you create more scarcity of position of already great scarcity, right? Because there's I don't know, are there 20 good quarterbacks in the NFL? Like maybe 6, 7, 8 great quarterbacks, and the rest, good, down to about number 20, maybe fewer. And then there's a rotation of a bunch of guys who are just filling space until somebody figures something else out. Superflex, a ton of fun. Anyhow, so we'll see what happens with Tua Tagovailoa and how it impacts the fantasy values of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. And I think, kind of have the feeling Tyreek Hill is, and Mike Fiala was, laid out a pretty good case, for Tyreek Hill last night, being just the kind of difference-making player, not so old, wide receivers, not yet 30, you still have plenty of time left. So these are things we'll talk about over the offseason. One of the big issues for me in Dynasty is knowing when it's time to rebuild. Mike had a really good take on that last night. If you're number one, if you're out of the season and you're thinking about rebuilding, you're probably too late to rebuild. And his contention was, and he's totally correct, is the people who are making strong playoff pushes, they're going to be the ones looking to acquire pieces. If you were looking to move pieces to build draft capital going forward, you should have been doing that, working with the teams that were in contention down the stretch last year. And he also made a really good point. If you're not the first team, in line for a rebuild, you might want to wait and put off your rebuild. If somebody's really built up the assets, in their draft, and you can see they have the draft capital to make a really strong push. Rebuild's maybe a 2-year process, but that first year is important. And if somebody has really locked up a lot of draft capital, maybe put it off and you try and remain competitive for another year, and then get into the next season and then start your rebuild ahead of everybody else. Anyway, welcome to Dynasty Monday. Superflex. All right, so we got the games injury report wise. Nothing too dramatic. The Cincinnati Bengals, it apparently does not matter if Alex Kappa and Jonah Williams don't play, which is apparently a good thing because they will not play this week. Talked to Tyler Dragon from USA Today, who has covered the Bengals for a while, and kind of asked him about some of the issues with this offensive line and how they continue to play well. He thought last week was a combination of them playing okay and Buffalo playing not okay. Chris Jones is going to have something to say about that this week. I think, as I mentioned, he's a little fired up with the, his comments about Burrowhead Stadium, and Joe Burrow's been really good. Bengals have been really good against the Chiefs team. Chiefs have noticed this. So we've got those injuries. Otherwise, Hayden Hurst came off the injury report. And so he's got the calf issue. I think, did he hurt that against Kansas City? I believe maybe he did. If I correct me if I'm wrong, people. I'll correct me if I'm wrong. How about I correct myself if I'm wrong and not put that pressure on you to correct me? Although I'm happy to be corrected by you. What do we got here? Hayden Hurst, I believe he hurt himself against Kansas City in the last game against Kansas City is what I want to say. And that's true. He hurt his calf against Kansas City, missed the next 4 games, came back week 18, and has played last week as well. So he is back, and so the calf injury jumped on the injury report on Thursday, said he was going to play, then he was removed from the injury report on Friday, so I'm guessing he will play. Very cheap DFS option, the cheapest among the starting tight ends this week anyway, so that's maybe worth a little something. Just stop your name. The guy that offered me the 103 has 101, 103, 109, 110, and 112 in our first offseason after. We said, wow, he's been working. That guy, that's a lot of draft capital. Interesting. It's in a good position. It's what you want to do. All right, so pretty good shape for the Bengals then. The offensive line, again, they kind of picked up. By the way, Ted Karras, the center, also was hurt last week and looked like it was kind of bad, but he ended up finishing the game, put a brace on, and got it done. So kudos to him. For the Kansas City Chiefs, Mecole Hardman with the pelvis, still questionable. Not sure he'll make it back this week. Also questionable, Justin Watson due to illness. He was a late addition to the injury report. And Travis Kelce, back issue on the injury report. Who's not on the injury report? Patrick Mahomes and Jerick McKinnon. I mean, they're on it, but there are no injury designations. I don't think Patrick Mahomes is fully healthy, but we'll see. Talked to Haley Lewis, a local sports anchor in Kansas City last night. Asked her first and foremost about Kelce, since he was a late addition to the injury report. I don't know that this is entirely true, but it's entirely possible that he didn't want to do his media session after practice, because he did practice fully, right? And then he didn't do his media session, and the Chiefs said it was because he was getting treatment on his back. So whether it was because he got the treatment on his back because he didn't want to do his media session, or the other way around, no big whoop. Nobody there in Kansas City believes Travis Kelce's going to miss the game. Dame doesn't believe Travis Kelce's going to miss the game. Dame is correct. They're not going to miss the game. Neither is Patrick Mahomes. And I guess that's our question, right? For what is Patrick Mahomes' level of health? We saw him walk around. We saw like 2 long, well, not even long, 2 10, 15-foot excursions to and from the podium without a limp, without a boot, all the things you wanted to see. So that was great news. Saw some glimpses of him on the practice field. When reporters are at practice, it's a narrow band that they get. It's a 10, 15-minute, they call the open portion. It's basically stretching in a roll call, and then we don't know. Just like I'll talk about San Francisco, we got some expectations based on the open portion of practice, and it turned out not to be exactly correct. Anyway, so yes, no way Kelce misses, no way Mahomes misses, and the question is how healthy is Mahomes? What will he be able to do? And I'm looking, you think back to last week, early in his return from, shortly after he came back into the game, he took off and ran for a first down, and it was a little nerve-wracking, but expect more of that. I mean, I don't think he's dialing things back. I think he will try to make plays, and hopefully, he makes it through the game. This is one of the reasons, and you guys can put in the chat. By the way, hit the subscribe button if you're not subscribed. Hit the like thing, the thumb up. Hit the thumb down if you don't like me. I'm going to hit the dislike button for my self-loathing. I wish Kansas City was healthier too. So I went into this. Let's get through the injury report. I'm very excited about these games. I mean, I love this time of football, this time of the season, because I get to watch all the games, right? And how they play out, and little less bandwidth eaten up by the 32 teams playing. It's kind of fun for me. Kind of a nice deceleration. Mecole Hardman, as I mentioned, I don't know if I trust him. Clyde Edwards-Helaire could be activated. Jody Fortson, the tight end, could be activated. Sounded like Andy Reid thought Fortson was closer. The San Francisco 49ers, Philadelphia Eagles injury report. Jimmy Garoppolo's out, but he might be ready to back up young Brock Purdy the next game if the 49ers make it that far. Elijah Mitchell listed as questionable. That was something I referred to. So Christian McCaffrey missed Wednesday and Thursday's practice, came back Friday. Do I want to say limited participation? Yes, full participation on Friday. My bad. Deebo Samuel worked fully on Friday. Good to go. Trent Williams got some rest all week. He's good to go. Otherwise, not too worried about some of the defensive players that are on here. But Elijah Mitchell did not practice Wednesday and Thursday. And then the reporters on the scene reported he was not on the field Friday. So sudden expectation that, wow, we're not going to have that guy. But then it turns out after practice, the official injury report came out and Mitchell was limited. He's listed as questionable. Seems like fairly limited, right? So, and that's the portion, that's the problem with, the extent of our knowledge on practicing is we rely on the team reporting. Well, limited is all they have to tell us. We don't know how limited he was. We don't know if he was out there taking mental reps while watching teammates take real reps. We don't know if he was running full speed, cutting sharply in his reps. He had his groin injury. So he is questionable. It's good news for Christian McCaffrey managers. I think this, again, there's a reason he's the most expensive player on the slate. And it's a soft pricing slate this week, by the way. Good news. You can play everybody. Good morning, Andrea. Thanks for coming. You can play everyone in the DFS slate this week. I mean, you can literally play everybody. Well, you have to figure some things out, but everyone is reasonably enough priced that you can do some fun things. So if you don't play, I would recommend go checking it out. This is the time of year to do it. It's fun. I like playing tournaments. Everyone knows this. I like having a lottery ticket in my hand while I watch the game based on the game. Well, a lottery ticket. I said it's singular. That's a fib. It is not singular. There are many lottery tickets in my hand as I watch the games. More so in the regular season, obviously, than this time of year. Anyway, so there we have it for the Philadelphia Eagles. Pretty damn healthy, right? Everyone's looking good. Jalen Hurts off the injury report. All the players, in fact, who were on there includes A.J. Brown, who is listed, but for non-injury. He had a hip issue. They said last week. Apparently, it's not an issue this week. So literally everybody on this list, James Bradbury. Okay, so 2 players on this list, not actually injured. Lane Johnson with the groin, he'll play. Avonte Maddox sounds like he's going to be back this week, so he will play. They have nobody has a status report, so neither of those guys. But A.J. Brown, James Bradbury, Fletcher Cox, who else? Landon Dixon, Brandon Graham, Jason Kelsey, Robert Quinn, Isaac Samuelo, Darius Slay, Josh White. Everyone took a rest, right? Everyone was resting on Thursday, back to practice on Friday. Everyone was full participants on Friday, including Lane Johnson and Avonte Maddox. So all the pieces will be there. It'll be an exciting game. I'm looking forward to all these games. So it really is good news on the Christian McCaffrey front. We're gonna have. I'll tell you a little preview here. Monday night on the Football Diehards radio program, and I've been all over the place this morning, right? I'm trying to get all my points out in like 30 seconds, and I have an hour if I want. Take a break, Bob. Slow down. Okay. So, footballdiehards.com is where you'll find us. Also, you'll find us on the radio dial, Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. The Football Diehards program will be on going forward, at least through the Super Bowl. We'll be on 4 days a week, the usual Monday, Thursday, Friday night shows at 10 p.m. Eastern time. We'll go to midnight those nights. No more 1 a.m. finishes now that the games are over. And then Saturdays, we'll be doing shows in the immediate future. Today, 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern time. Again, I'll mention Jeff Bell will be joining us from Football Guys and at Debbie Royale. Might be some dynasty talk there. And also Monday night, 10 p.m. on the Football Diehards radio program. Mike Dempsey and I will be doing the first mock draft Monday. If you followed those along last year, we had a great time. Get like 4 of us on there. This week, it will be colleagues from here, the Football Diehards YouTube channel. Eric Romoff and Jamie Calandro will join us. We each take 3 teams, and we get through about 8 rounds of a mock draft. And we like to do these on Monday nights during the off season and kind of see how values change and our views of players change. We kind of analyze on the fly and discuss, after the fact, and have a really good time. A lot of information gets out in their show. So, and also, I want to say on the 11th. Is that good? Is that correct? Let me see what day that is. No, the 13th. I think that's the day after the Super Bowl. We'll be doing we'll be hosting the full staff, Sirius XM first mock draft with the staff. So the hosts draft. So A lot going on there. So anyway, great stuff. Jamie and Eric are good dudes. No DFS line show this week. Eric was on last night. Talked about some of his picks. We'll discuss a little DFS on the show today. So anyway, let's look at these games. So we go into the 49ers and at Philadelphia. The spread's, what do we got? 2.5-point favorites. Philadelphia, 46-point over under. The implied total there is interesting. Two great defenses. Philadelphia led the NFL in pass defense, giving up under 180 yards per game. They led the league in sacks during the regular season. The Niners had the most interceptions, second in run defense, just under 80 yards per game allowed. They had 20 interceptions on the season. So we'll see what Christian McCaffrey can do against his teams. Has touchdowns in 8 straight games. Jalen Hurts has, according to ESPN, 332.5 passing yards per game and 7 touchdowns against top 10 defenses this season. These are very good teams. They probably deserve to be here. So again, looking at some of the players in this game and levels of interest in them, I mean, I think, generally speaking, and I mentioned this, everyone is reasonably enough priced that you could play just about anyone, right? But as we look at the players in this game in particular, go to the rankings for this week. Jalen Hurts and Brock Purdy. I mean, I think, this is a pretty easy call. I don't expect Purdy to turn back into a pumpkin at any point. I think that's kind of been one of the things that, like, when does it all come crashing down? I don't think it all comes crashing down, but it all could come back to what we saw last week, where it was a pretty tough game, and the pass rushers here are pretty formidable. That's going to be an issue, right? Hassan Reddick has 17.5 sacks this year, including a sack and a half last week against the Giants. Kind of similar usage to what we saw, with Micah Parsons. Put a lot of pressure on Brock Purdy. He handled it reasonably well, but that was a ball game throughout, right? So, this is going to be a pretty tough matchup for Brock Purdy. He'll be tested. I have some. By the way, let's talk about. Well, I'll talk about that in a minute. Going forward, what about Brock Purdy next year? We'll talk about that in a second. For the Eagles, Jalen Hurts, easy locked-in play, right? I'm playing him for sure. I think you could play your choice of Devontae Smith. It seems like Smith has had the recent run, right? And it almost feels like you watch what happened last week where we didn't see a heck of a lot of A.J. Brown, right? And we saw plenty of Devontae Smith. And Devontae Smith has a really nice target share of the recent games. So Brown on DraftKings, 7,000. Devontae Smith, 6,800. You're not gaining a lot playing either. You almost feel like this is the week that, maybe A.J. Brown talking about, wanting the ball more, that he's not a diva. He just wants to be part of the offense. And maybe he wasn't last week. They try to get this corrected a little bit. And try and push him a little bit. Given the price points, I mean, I think you can play the one you want. I have shares of both. I think that's going to be the thing. How many lineups you have is going to maybe determine which of these guys you play. I get playing the momentum of Devontae Smith, who seems to have come on down the stretch a little bit. But I'm not going to count out. I'm not counting out Brown. Dallas Goedert's in a good spot. The matchup is fairly tough, right? I mean, tough linebackers, in San Francisco. That could be an issue. They haven't been world stopping, but it's pretty tough. They're good coverage linebackers there, so that might be an issue. But I'm still happy to play Dallas Goedert for the role. On the other side, of course, you're playing George Kittle. You're going to be playing Christian McCaffrey. You're going to be playing Brandon. You play Deebo Samuel. I'm going to be playing Brandon Ayuk some. But I think all those top guys are fair play, and maybe some of the outliers are kind of where, it runs into a bit of an issue, right? So do you like Quez Watkins for a big play threat? Seems viable. Do you like Juwan Jennings or any of those guys? I mean, they're all dart tosses that are viable. I think Quez Watkins is my favorite dart toss in that game. But, Jennings, we've seen him rise up as well. Again, all reasonably priced. You can make all kinds of builds. The running backs, beyond McCaffrey, Miles Sanders, we have concerns about just in terms of, look, he's been very good this year, but the usage has been uneven, and it makes it a tough call, right? So I want to say the over/under on him is what do we got? By the way, some of the overs/unders on the passers in this game: Brock Purdy under 219 passing yards. He's only hit 219 three times. Even with all his success and going against this Eagles defense, have some pretty good perimeter plays. That might be pushing it a little bit. As far as Miles Sanders, 58.5, or I think depending on where you play, 56.5 I've seen as well. He's gone over that 11 times, 61% of the time. But that is not against the league's best rush defense. So Mike Clay pointed this out from ESPN. Including the playoffs, the 49ers have only allowed 3 running backs to reach 59 yards this season. None of them have cleared 69. They faced the fewest carries because it's easier to throw on them. So Sanders is averaging 15.3 carries per game. So that's going to be a close one. I'm probably not betting that one because I don't like to bet the under. But if I was betting it, I would not probably touch that one. So beyond that, Gainwell, Boston Scott, dart tosses. So tough calls there. Brian Larkin has a question. 10-team PPR league. Do I have a favorite spot I want to draft in? I will figure that out here. I'll start figuring that out there. Look, I like 1 overall pretty much every time. In a 10-team, I think it's a little, less urgent. Some of the big questions we'll be looking at in drafts this year is how early is too early to draft Travis Kelce. We'll talk about that. I'm sure in the mock draft. I'm guessing this week, if Mike Dempsey has the first pick overall, he'll take Travis Kelce first overall because he's been pounding the table on that. So I don't have a good feel yet, Brian. Sometimes it changes year to year what I like. As a general rule, either end I'm pretty happy with, and it's how far into the middle I'm happy with. Kind of depends on how the season plays out and how drafts start playing out. So it'll be something we follow along. We'll be doing some mock drafts here as well on the YouTube channel. We've done these in the past. We dial up a sleeper mock, and I sit here and mock your mockery, and it's a good time. Sometimes I take part, but it's always a great exercise and a nice way to do that. And we'll be doing tons of best balls on the show as well. We like to do those. Invite listeners in, and we'll be starting some of those up as our usual order of the day. So, for right now, Brian, I'll just say early and late, I'm fine with the turns, like the turns or close to the turns. 1, 2, 9, 10, and we'll see how the middle plays out. I have a feeling we're going to see some shifts in approaches to drafts this year. I think I'm going to shift my approach a little bit. I don't want to overstate the case, and I've been talking about it here for a little while, but I'm going to, maybe more closely mirror what the NFL is investing in my investments, and the NFL is investing in the passing attack. Casey Joyner was on the radio program. You know him from the Football Diehards website. We'll get him on on this live stream as well over the course of the offseason. He thinks the proliferation of running backs, the heavier usage, he thinks teams are going to more power rushing, but that includes the quarterback. I don't. So I think it makes it a little harder, to identify the running backs, but also it increases the pool. So we'll see. Is Mason a good play if Mitchell can't go? I don't know that he's a great play, but he's a play if Mitchell can't go, right? I think that's, I think if you're playing outside, John, the top picks and you're trying to differentiate a little bit, yes, Mason will be a play. Will be among those plays. Dame wants to know, is there a particular player in free agency that intrigues you the most? For her, it's Josh Jacobs. I want to say, yeah, I probably tend to agree with that. I was looking at the list the other day. I have it in front of me. I want to say, so I think, the quarterbacks notwithstanding, right? Because I think the quarterbacks are always going to top the list. What's going to happen with Lamar Jackson? I think Geno Smith's going to re-sign. Tom Brady, where is he going to end up? Derek Carr's not a free agent, but where is he? What's going on with him? What's going on with Daniel Jones? They get him re-signed. Saquon Barkley on that list as well, Dame. I think I'm most interested in these guys if they go back or they stay put, right? We have a better feeling of what's going on. Tony Pollard will be an interesting one to me. The injury kind of skews that a little bit? Does that make it easier for the Cowboys to keep him? That's my, that's kind of where I'm sitting right now. Is it seems more likely one of the most effective guys per touch in the NFL. I mean, I think there would be interest. I think there'd be more interested in him if he had not broken his fibula. Jacoby Myers is on the list. So Jacobs, I'm not disagreeing with you at all. I mean, I think Josh Jacobs, just based on, I'm a volume chaser, and I hope the part about this that intrigues me is where does he go, and does he get that same kind of run? Like, who else needs running backs? Where else would he get a similar kind of workload? Is Miami going to need running backs? Or are we sticking with Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mostert? Do they make a change? That seems like a running back friendly scheme. Buffalo's, Devin Singletary is an unrestricted free agent. Are they going to be in the market? If he ended up there, I would be not feeling as great. I mean, that offense is kind of not built on the run. Maybe they want to change the dynamic there a little bit after coming up short. So I think Jacobs clearly on the list. I mean, if you're a volume enthusiast like I am, I want him to stay in place. I probably should say it. I think probably 9 times out of 10, I think people staying where they are is usually the best answer. Because the reason we're interested in them is because they've been successful. And they've been successful, in no small part due to their own individual talents and abilities, but also football's a team sport, and it's the scheme, it's the coaching staff, it's the pieces around them that help make them what they are. And so I kind of like all the status quo to remain unchanged. But I mean, there are going to be changes in Las Vegas. There's going to be a new quarterback. Is it going to change the dynamic of that offense? The reliance on Josh Jacobs, it was great. We remember, Dave, we went into the season talking about Josh Jacobs a lot. Like, we can go back to the Hall of Fame game where we're freaked out at the usage. Why are they running him so much? They must be wanting to get rid of him. Zamir White is going to be the guy. What's going on here? The theories, there was a range of possible outcomes. And the one that we talked about on the radio program, Dame wants to see Tom Brady throwing it to Jacobs. He can't catch the ball. That would be pretty sweet, right? I'm with you there. That would be a good move. I want to say, though, that, the possibilities were that they went full New England Patriots, right? With Ziegler, the GM from New England, McDaniels, the coach from New England, and Ziegler talked a little bit about it. We're going to compete. We're going to have specific roles. That was like shortly after the draft. They took a couple running backs in the draft, including Zamir White. They brought in Brandon Bolden from New England, and so you're going, oh my God, here we go. It's going to go full committee approach. Or with Josh Jacobs going into the final year of his contract and they didn't pick up his option, maybe they'll run the wheels off him. They'll treat him like a rental car, turn him in, beaten and battered. And so it was closer to the latter, right? The heavy usage was fantastic. That's what we're hoping for again. And Dame brings up a great point. If Tom Brady turns up there, ask Leonard Fournette what kind of benefits you get from being a trusted target of Tom Brady's out of the backfield. It's very beneficial. So that would be great. So that's something we'll be watching for. I want to go back to the quarterback situation for the San Francisco 49ers because I gained a little clarity. It was interesting. Had a guest on Football Diehards on Thursday night. And there was some, if you don't listen to the program, we have, always have beat writers on to kind of help us get up to speed on what's going on with the teams and what we need to know and all those kind of good things, right? And so the big question has been obvious, right? What's going on? What are we going to do with what are they going to do with the quarterback situation? How's that going to play out? What are we going to see? Are we going to see? I mean, is Brock Purdy locked in as the starter? Should we take that to the bank? I mean, that's kind of where I've been, right? I think we should take that to the bank. So we asked a local observer about this very thing. Dieter, what was his name? Dieter Kurtenbach. It's a Bay Area news group from KMBR Radio as well. And he said he's been told in multiple conversations with team officials that this is basically Purdy's job, right? They're going to go in with next year. Purdy is a starter. Trey Lance as the backup. They've got 2 cheap quarterbacks, and this is the key to this, right? The key to this is having quarterbacks on rookie contracts. You don't have a cheaper quarterback in the league right now than probably starting quarterback. Well, you don't have a cheaper starting quarterback. We do have them on. We have them on. So during the season, things have shifted a little bit because we're on weird times. But no, during the summer and during the off season, we have tons on. Hang tough, JR. You'll get them. But the thought being, I think, Kurtenbach mentioned Brock Purdy is $775,000 contract, right? That's dirt cheap. Less than $1 million on your starting quarterback for the foreseeable future. Trey Lance, making $8-9 million a year, because of his draft spot. That's still like $10 million on all your quarterbacks or your top 2 quarterbacks. That's dirt cheap. Most teams pay well over that for their backup. Ask Chase Daniel how great it is to be a backup quarterback in the NFL. So they're going to go in with those 2 quarterbacks, and it's going to be Brock Purdy almost certainly as a starter. Why is that? Because he executes Kyle Shanahan's scheme. Right? He came in, he got an opportunity, he took advantage of it. He's demonstrated his ability to play within the system, and I think that's important to Kyle Shanahan. I'm guessing Kyle Shanahan thinks that if quarterbacks did everything he told them to do, his team would never lose a game. So far, Brock Purdy checks that box, right? He's doing exactly what Kyle Shanahan wants, and they haven't lost a game. I'm not connecting those dots, but it's happening. Right, so that makes perfect sense to me. Dempsey and I have been arguing about, he still thinks Trey Lance, how do you give up on Trey Lance? Well, I don't think you give up on him, but he hasn't had a chance to demonstrate what he's capable of doing. He doesn't seem to be the same kind of fit. He was a little bit raw coming in, and Brock Purdy came in and has established himself. So I don't see why you would go. Dempsey's argument is fair. If Jimmy Garoppolo didn't, took him well into the playoffs, didn't get him to the Super Bowl success, and the next thing you know, there was a Trey Lance. So, getting close to the Super Bowl certainly isn't a guarantee, but I think in this case, it's locked him in fairly well. That's kind of where I'm at. And also, apparently, where the team officials behind the scenes are at as well. And by the way, this is not just Dieter Kurtenbach saying this. Michael Silver, who's covered this team for many years, from NFL Network and SI, currently the San Francisco Chronicle. He said last week he's talked to multiple people inside the 49ers, management and inside the building who tell him the same thing, that Brock Purdy's the guy heading into next year. So interesting. Funny how these things work out. I can remember, I'm old enough to remember when the Seattle Seahawks signed a really, like a quarterback without a lot of success as a starter. Right? His name was Matt Flynn, paid him a ton of money, had a great game for the Green Bay Packers once. They paid him a ton of money, and they also drafted a young quarterback named Russell Wilson. And, the total expectation was Matt Flynn is the guy, right? And all of a sudden, you start hearing the buzz in camp. Pete Carroll started talking about a competition. Well, obviously, he was seeing things from this young Russell Wilson that we didn't see from him this year. I'm not kidding, but obviously, we all know how that played out, and that's kind of started a string of, and I think teams are wise to do this. You can find that young quarterback and get early success. The money matters. You can have the ability to spend up around him, and I think that's benefiting the 49ers going forward, and it's benefiting other teams. So, except the New York Jets, not benefiting them. Fascinated is JR1616 by the futures of Fields, Lance, Purdy, and Zach Wilson. I am fascinated by some of those futures, Fields in particular. What's going to happen with that kid? Is he going to take a Jalen Hurts-like leap as a passer? Are the Bears going to put the pieces around him so he can make that Jalen Hurts-like leap as a passer? Love what he did as a runner. I think he looks like he throws the ball really well. I hope they put some weapons around him. That was kind of the talk of last year, this last offseason with the new staff coming in, new general manager, Ryan Poles, new head coach, Matt Eberflus, and were they totally committed? And then the investments they made in the offseason and in draft capital kind of suggested, well, maybe they're not all in, but they had a lot of needs, right? So, maybe this year they focus a little more on helping out helping out their young quarterback and helping him develop. I thought he was phenomenal. Obviously, fantasy managers who drafted him, you remember as a rookie, he was going higher, right? People were really into the speculative drafting. I think last year there were still some people into it, and it paid off for him, right? We do this as fantasy managers a lot. We are a year early, or like in the case of Daniel Jones, 3 years early. I don't know. Players do evolve and they get better. Things, situations, and circumstances change. Daniel Jones is another quarterback whose future I'm interested in seeing. You mentioned the intriguing free agents. I mean, I'm hoping he sticks around and Brian Daboll views him. What do we do in fantasy football, people? We tell ourselves happy stories about players or sad, scary stories, right? I mean, we don't know how things are going to play out. And we're sitting here trying to work with the information we have, and we start connecting those dots I mentioned before in the program. And trying to figure out where things are going. And if I'm like sitting here telling myself happy stories and connecting dots, I'm connecting the dots between Brian Daboll and his success in Buffalo, developing a quarterback that we all know and love now, Josh Allen. Well, we maybe love him less right now than we did a month ago, but we still love him. But Daniel Jones, I mean, he made great progress. There's no doubt. And he exhibits some of the abilities in terms of, not like the full Josh Allen, but like kind of a Josh Allen, right? He can run the football. He's, and he's done that since before Brian Daboll was there. So he's an intriguing player. Zach Wilson, we may have seen the last of Zach Wilson. I don't know if, sometimes guys come in, sometimes you get Josh Rosen. I just turned Josh Rosen into a verb. It happens, man. Players come in and they get into a bad circumstance to start out. I mean, Derek Carr, right? Or David Carr. I'm sorry, Derek's brother. Derek's biggest supporter, David. Went into a bad situation with the Houston Texans. Is their early draft pick, and and they just had no pass protection. He just got crushed, right? And just never had that chance. I just don't know, and I don't think he ever had an opportunity to develop, maybe fully into what he could have been. And I wonder if that's not the same for, Trey Lance and Zach Wilson, right? Just, kind of maybe need a new team to get things done, but not everyone gets that opportunity, right? And so the Jets in particular have committed to adding a veteran and developing Zach Wilson. And they've been very supportive of Zach Wilson, or at least Robert Saleh has been, more so than teammates. Aren't very supportive at all. I think they've had enough of this nonsense. Remember when he was the cool dude last summer and everyone was wearing GOAT, Zach Wilson is GOAT t-shirts and whatnot? That train ended. Mike White will be another one of the free agents. I don't know if he'll have, I don't know if his success wasn't just a relative thing. I mean, it was some success, but relative compared to, what Zach Wilson was doing led to some enthusiasm, or maybe more enthusiasm than there should have been. He struggled to stay healthy, just like Trey Lance has. Anyway, so yeah, we'll see what happens with these guys. I'm keen on the future of Justin Fields, just as his ability as a runner. From a fantasy perspective, that's the goal, right? The Rich Rebar Konami code quarterbacks that we've all been chasing for a number of years. The Jalen Hurts level plays, the Lamar Jackson. We'll see what Lamar Jackson does. It's another one of the intriguing free agents for me as well, Dame. I think the quarterbacks, that musical chairs game of quarterbacks will be interesting to see what happens with Aaron Rodgers. We don't know. Will he ever be good again? So we've been sitting here rambling along. Let's cover the second game before it gets too late. KC, 1.5 point favorite right now. That's kind of gone back and forth. Patrick Mahomes brought it back after he got on the practice field all this week. The over-under there is 47 points. So Mahomes has been fantastic. He's done really well in the pocket. I'm sure that's where they want him to remain. He led the league in QBR from throws inside the pocket. I want to say I had the number of touchdowns he threw from inside the pocket. It was a good number. So obviously they don't want him moving. So he's playing on what they've called a high ankle sprain that isn't acting like a high ankle sprain. He's played through this before, apparently. Mahomes has played reasonably well against the Bengals. The Bengals have played reasonably well against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs in particular. Joe Burrow is playing lights out. Jamar Chase is playing lights out. I want to say, both players get the ball out of their hands quickly. ESPN noted Burrow ranks 19th and Mahomes 18th, first and second respectively, with 18 and 19 ranked first and second in touchdown passes on throws in under 2.5 seconds. So that will work well for Mahomes for sure in this game. Chiefs have great run after the catch ability with Travis Kelce. The Chiefs have generated more yards after the catch than any team this season, 2,908. And the third highest per catch average of any offense, 6.3 yards after the catch. So good stuff there. Cincinnati's going to work on Travis Kelce. I mean, they've got to try to contain him. Last week he was a monster. You saw it was caught 14 of 17 targets. Didn't do a lot with them, but the volume was there, which is fine for us. So I mean, we'll see what happens here. I think the backfield is interesting. Jerick McKinnon kind of turned into a glorified offensive lineman last week. A lot of pass protection duties for him. Could be. Oh, Andrea wants to know Hurts or Burrows. I'm sorry, I missed that earlier, Andrea. I saw it and I got caught up in something else. I'm probably playing more Burrow. I think the matchup is more favorable for him this week from my perspective. I like Burrow as my top quarterback. Jalen Hurts, number 2. It's a little tougher matchup, but they can throw well, and I think he might need to run. Patrick Mahomes is my number 3 quarterback. Just a little concerned about the ankle injury, but I think he can get enough done. But don't underestimate. I think we've all kind of overlooked, and including other teams. Lou Anarumo, the defensive coordinator there, has done a fantastic job, not just this year, but last year. I mean, that was a big piece of their success and got them to the Super Bowl. Brock Purdy, just given the matchup and, based on last week's game, I'll probably think he would be the lowest. Again, I have probably DFS lineups with all these guys. At the running back position in this late game, I like McKinnon slightly over Pacheco, but I think they're both playable. I think they're within $200 of each other on DraftKings. And watch out in case Pacheco or in case McKinnon is asked to pass block more like he was last week. He didn't get a lot of work. He was on the field a lot. His snap count went up. I think he was at 65%, I want to say. So he was on the field a hell of a lot. Didn't get a hell of a lot done. And so a lot of Isaiah Pacheco. And I think we will see a fair amount of running with Isaiah Pacheco. Makes sense. He's had some pretty good run of carries, I want to say, the last couple of weeks. Let me see where that's at. Oh, by the way, the over-under on Jerick McKinnon rushing yards, 16.5. I think I'll take that over. Thank you. Pacheco, I think he's had, what do I want to say here? Has at least 11.5 carries in 8 of his last 10 games, and that's 14 carries against the Bengals last time they played in Week 13. So I think Pacheco is a reasonable play here as well. I think obviously you're playing Travis Kelce. After that, you get to the wide receivers, right? And what do you do with those guys? I asked Haley Lewis that last night. I asked Tyler Dragon that last night. Which pieces seem to be set for the most success or in line for the most success. For me, it comes down to I want the playmaking ability of Darius Toney. Even if it's not very consistent, they try to scheme him up and find unique ways to get him the football, including the jet sweeps, the bubble screens, all those things, and let his athleticism, which is pretty remarkable, rule the day. And so I think he's the one you can play, but you could throw your dart at Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Juju Smith-Schuster, I mean, he's kind of like he's become a polarizing figure, right? I feel like, why don't we love Juju more? The over-under on his receiving yards are 46.5 yards. He's only reached 47 yards in 7 of 17 games this season. Mike Clay noted that. And 5 of those were during the first 8 games of the season. Hasn't hit that mark since Week 15. Doesn't have more than 4 targets or 35 yards in 4 consecutive games. That includes 35 yards on 4 targets in the last time these two teams met. So I'm not a fan of Juju. Haley Lewis was, though. She thought he was going to be a big piece of this offense. So I guess the bottom line here is they're all super affordable, and you can pick your poison. My poison is Kadarius Toney. He seems like truly poisonous, not on a personal level. Although maybe that too. I don't know. I don't know the young man. I keep thinking back to that huge game as a Giant when he, kind of revealed his full range, which was, the Dallas game as a rookie, caught 9 passes or 10 passes, 190 yards, and he punched somebody in the face. Brian Larkin wants to know, thinking ahead for next year's draft, who is your must-have after the first round? Of course, we can change our minds as things unfold. What does it go to, folks, for championship, right? This is an AMA. Yes, it is. So my go-to, I think, will be championship Sunday, will be pizza. Because I like pizza on Sunday. It's like my cheat day. And that's my favorite cheat food. So for me, it's pizza and popcorn. I think those are fair. What do you guys like? So thinking ahead to next year's draft, who is your must-have after the first round? If I don't get Travis Kelce in the first round, and I'm probably not going to be, doing that in every draft, this is the joy. So I feel almost like a cheater, right? Because I draft in a ton of drafters, and I'm going to do a lot of experimenting. I'm going to try a lot of different things. I'm going to be in hundreds of drafts by the time the season has started, right? And so I've tried pretty much everything. So I don't get that dialed in. Emo's looking for the ice cream bowl. There you go. Popcorn, totally underrated food. Wings for JR1616. So, so I feel like, my must-have players will coalesce as I kind of assess value. Like last year, it was guys like Christian Kirk because of the price I was paying. I had a lot of Alan Lazard for that same reason. One of those worked out better than the other. I'll probably pay a little more attention to rookie wide receivers too this year. But anyway, so I mean, just as I sit here right now, it's probably going to be, so I'm thinking I'm going to go running back and, I think I'm going to go wide receivers probably early, depending on how early in the draft I draft. I still might go running back. I still might, be CMC my first pick overall. Austin Eckler is going to be in that conversation. Because why wouldn't he be? I mean, the big concern, touchdown regression is apparently not a concern for Austin Eckler. Who knew? Not me. I did not know that. It'll be a greater concern for me this year. I think once I get past those first couple picks, I'm going to be looking at wide receivers, an awful lot of wide receivers early. So, I have a feeling after I get out of the first round, I'm going to start getting angsty for a running back. And I keep telling myself I want to not do a zero running back, but like kind of a hero running back. So I'm going to want a running back probably for sure in the first 2-3 rounds. First 2, and I'd say maybe 3. Thoughts on Cup last year? And by the way, the ribs sound delightful. Wings as well. Nothing's too messy. I'm here alone with my fiance, and we're both messy. Thoughts on Cup next year? This is one I like because I may be a little keener on Cooper Kupp with the pieces that are staying in place, and by that I mean Sean McVay, Matthew Stafford. I think. I'm hoping I get a discount. I'm hoping there's a discount when I'm drafting in the middle of first rounds, mid to late first rounds, that I'm going to have some Cooper Kupp shares. I think I have no reason to believe that his role is going to shift materially, right? And I think that's what we're counting on, right? You can sit here and worry about whether a player is suddenly injury prone or not injury prone. I don't worry about that. I worry about if he's available, to open the season. And that's once I'm past that, I mean, anyone can get hurt. So, and I don't think Cooper Kupp is in the area where I'm worried about chronic injuries any more than I am with Christian McCaffrey. Chronically injured is not a chronic injury. So I'll be drafting a lot of Cooper Kupp, I think. Yeah, I don't think bringing Mike LaFleur in is a negative, right? I mean, he leaves the Jets, and I feel like that puts a kind of a bad spin on it. But he ends up, and it was funny when they let him go. I think it was maybe a mutual parting of ways, in New York, and for the obvious reasons, they just didn't get that quarterback where they needed him to be, and their offense wasn't where they needed it to be. So I get that, but he goes back to the Rams, where he will probably not call the plays. But that hasn't necessarily hurt other coaches like in the past. Like I want to say his brother, Matt LaFleur, who went on to great things as a play caller and then as a head coach after leaving the Rams. So first to Tennessee as the play caller, then as to the Packers as the head coach and play caller. Sean McVay will still call the plays, but I think it's a good move as well. I mean, he's familiar with the scheme. They all come out of that same primordial soup of young coaching talent that was the Washington franchise back in the day. Then they all kind of moved to Atlanta, and by they, I include McVay, Kyle Shanahan, and a whole bunch of those younger up-and-coming coaches and their current range of assistants. It's been a good group, so they've had a lot of success. So yeah, I think it's a good move for the Rams as well. And I like the just the continuity for Cooper Kupp of having a quarterback and Sean McVay back, right? I mean, that's the thing. I'm drafting that role if I'm getting it at a good price. Hell, I might overpay for that role as well. Because Justin Jefferson, right? I mean, I think right now, if you look at like Fantasy Pros, consensus rankings, I think it's Jefferson, Chase. I don't have to think, I can look, right? Expert consensus rankings. I don't want to say dynasty. Here we go. So it looks like, wow, that's interesting. Overall, Christian McCaffrey, Austin Eckler, Justin Jefferson, Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, Jamar Chase, Cooper Kupp, number 8. I want that. I'll take some of that. Travis Kelce, 9, by the way. Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs, and Kenneth Walker III round out the first round. Interesting. Tyreek Hill just outside. Had a great talk with Mike Fiala about him and his prospects last night. I thought it was really interesting. So Justin Jefferson, I mean, whether teams are selling out to stop him at the expense of letting others fare better, and they just don't want to get killed by Justin Jefferson. It seemed like, there was times last year where teams figured out what the heck to do with him. I don't think that teams have figured out what to do with Jamar Chase, at least not coming back off his injury. And from what I recall, I don't think they had a good answer for Cooper Kupp for the most part. I could look that up. I'd like to look at the average score per game in the weekly scoring, which I think, kind of tells you a lot about a player. Cooper Kupp, 18.6 points per game. Justin Jefferson, 18.1. I'm using a generic scoring system, right? So, kind of one we use for the Sirius XM host leagues that I play in. It's PPR league, so, should kind of dovetail with what everyone's doing. But that Cooper Kupp, 18.6, led the way. 26, 27, 14, 19, 23, 14, 19, 23. 2 points in the game he was hurt, brought that average down a fair amount, right? So if we run his average out to the games where he played full games, let's do that and see what that goes to. 20.3 points per game. That's pretty good, in fact. Second only to Stephon Diggs over that same range where he was on a roll. So that's, so I'm kind of keen on Cooper Kupp. I guess that answers your question. My enthusiasm and great interest in Cooper Kupp knows no bounds, apparently. And my interest in you knows no bounds. I want to thank you for spending the hour with me, and I'll be back. I don't know if we'll see. I will probably do a Wednesday. Maybe come up with a guest or something to entertain you and we need to start setting the baseline on some of the rookie situations, things like that. We have the week off between the Super Bowl, but we'll come around to chat and figure out something to talk about here on Wednesday evening. And again, check me out on the Fantasy Sports Radio. I'll be doing that today at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Myself, Mike Dempsey, for 2 hours. We'll have Jeff Bell from Football Guys joining us for that show. We'll be on Monday night with the Mock Draft Monday with Romoff and Calandro, our first Mock Draft Monday of the year. So some of the things you're interested in. And at some point, JR1616, more beat writers. All right, everybody. Thanks for coming around. Hope to see you Wednesday, probably again next Saturday. And but watch the Twitter feed to figure out what's going on. Rookies, Andrew, what does everyone want to know about? What do you want to know about? Rookies? We want to talk rookies, building your dynasty teams, early draft values. We are going to get into my way too early top picks. Maybe we'll start that next week as well. That's probably a good time to do that. The way too early rankings are always a good time so we can adjust and figure things out over the course and see how they evolve over the course of the alter season, because there is no off season. Thanks, everybody. We will appreciate y'all coming. And again, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, do all those things that feed the algorithm. We appreciate your time and attention as always.